4, the progress of recovering. So this talks about signs of recovering. Becoming more proficient at managing flashbacks. Shrinking the critic. As it shrinks, mindful ego expands, which it allows you to reject the critic when it comes up. The ability to relax. Can resist overreacting from an activated state and using the 4 F's in healthy ways. Like only fight back when you're under real attack. Only flee when the odds are insurmountable. Only freeze when you need to go into acute observation mode. And only fawn when it's appropriate to be self-sacrificing. So trying to find that good balance between fight and fawn, a healthy balance between voicing your own needs and compromising with the needs of others, and also a healthy balance between flight and freeze, equilibrium between doing and being, between the sympathetic and parasympathetic nervous system arousal, and between the left and right brain processing. Becoming gradually more relaxed in safe enough company leads to an increasing capacity to be more authentic and vulnerable in trustworthy relationships. Letting go of salvation fantasy that will never have another flashback. Damn, there was me thinking, if I recovered enough, I'd never have one, but no. The stages of recovering. Recovery is progressive. It begins on a cognitive level, understanding we have CPTSD, deconstructing it, shrinking the critic, grieving effectively. Childhood losses, the grief of childhood losses can last for a couple of years, and then we move on to grieving our loss of safety in the world. Here we also work through our toxic shame by grieving the loss of our self-esteem. Abandonment, depression, talks about releasing armour and reactivity, which is gone into more in chapter 12, and learning to compassionately support ourselves. Relational help with achieving tasks to deconstruct our defences. And recovery may look like it's only working in 1 or 2 areas at a time, and this is okay. Trying to do too much may mean that nothing lands and gets integrated, so it's okay to simplify it. And I've made a note to share a tip from working in mental health. When I worked in locked mental health unit, there was someone who had words and phrases, motivational quotes, that they wrote out and stuck onto their wall, and I found that to be really useful of like reminding me where it is I want to be heading towards. The inner critic work is gradual. Eventually a new positive habit of rescuing ourselves from shame and self-hate emerges. When we practice enough, self-help becomes second nature, and it's progress, it's not perfection. I have a t-shirt to remind me of that. The book goes into talking about surviving versus thriving, and that it's a continuum, forwards and backwards along this line, making progress, thinking you've nailed it, and then the bottom falls away and you're back to feeling like you can barely survive, forgetting that we even had a period of thriving. Another flashback. I remember spending a lot of time in this state of only being able to feel where I was at currently and not being able to remember the other times. I didn't realise at the time that it was a flashback though. Survival mode makes everything really hard. As we improve, we can recognise that suicidal ideation is a sign of flashbacks. Regressions are a call to address important developmental arrests. So in the case of lengthy flashbacks, It's the need to learn self-acceptance during difficulty that we're trying to learn. Grow in our ability to survive by using mindfulness techniques to practice and build self-compassion. If we are far enough along in recovery, we can ask a safe ally to support us in verbally ventilating our pain at being in survival. Temptation to revert to less functional ways of self-soothing, which could be comfort eating, substance abuse, working, sleeping, sexually acting out, and self-medication prolongs an experience. Difficulties in identifying the signs of recovery. Some folk work on recovery for a long time and feel they're not making progress. Perfectionism, an expectation that we should be awesome at this straight away. So common areas that are blind spots. Less intense launching into the 4F's responses. Increased resistance to the critic. Increased mindfulness about flashbacks and inner critic attacks. Increased time feeling good about self. Progress on meeting developmental arrests. Decreasing overeating or other self-medications. Increased experiences of good enough relating with others. Decrease in painfulness and intensity of flashback feelings. Noticing and identifying these is more progressive than being blindly lost in them. Notice the decreasing intensity of flashback feelings of anxiety, shame, and depression. Social anxiety spectrum runs from panicky withdrawal to tolerable social discomfort to periods of social ease. And there's a dance along that line. And the depression continuum, paralysing despair, anhedonia, and tired peacefulness. I just wrote down anhedonia, but I can't remember what it means now. I'll put a note in the comments. Inner critic thought processes declare a lack of progress whenever a new flashback happens, but that's not true. Accepting recovery is a lifelong process. Regressions happen. It's a normal part of the process. A condition that needs managing throughout life. It comes with significant silver linings, which we'll go into at the end of the chapter. There are therapeutic flashbacks and growing pains that we can tap into. Healing from childhood trauma is a long, gradual process. Being your fullest expression can be intimidating and flashback inducing. So healing self-assertion was punished. Healthy self-assertion was punished in many dysfunctional families. Expressing yourself in ways that your parents forbade typically triggers intense flashbacks at first. This can cause you to lose sight of how this practice gradually reduces the chronic pain of remaining invisible. We can encourage ourselves to face these therapeutically, to reclaim what our parents denied us, to own what is ours for the taking. Unless we speak up, the loneliness of our silence will imprison us forever. If we are to recover our real voice, we must invoke the imagery of bravery, taking right action despite being afraid. Knowing that fear doesn't have to be disabling. With enough practice, therapeutic flashbacks diminish and get replaced with a healthy sense of pride and safe belonging in the world. It's important to acknowledge that feelings of guilt, shame, and fear are sometimes signs that we have done the right thing. Emotional flashbacks to how we were traumatized. And it talks about learning to enjoy these feelings, reinterpreting the deeper meanings of these feelings is important. Having epiphanies such as, I feel afraid, but not in danger like I was as a child. I feel guilty, not because I am guilty, but because I was made to feel guilty in the past. I feel shame because, and I wrote my own example for that, which was my parents were unable to own the shame for their actions, and I processed it instead. Optimal stress. Too little stress stops neural pathways from being updated. Too much stress damages neurons, so we need to find a balance. And the book reports that minor flashbacks can actually create that optimal stress. So, silver linings. Those in long-term recovery often have an amazing amount of emotional intelligence, which can lead to deeper intimacy, a richer internal life. We get to develop more of our full potential. You get to follow your own bliss within work, hobbies, fashion, home decor, etc. You get to try out meditation, better diet, alternative medicine, environmentalism, greater use of the grieving process. There's a few more examples in the book. We gain greater wisdom in making important life decisions and improve the ability to utilise the 4 F's effectively when in real danger. Ability to handle normal pain in most healthy and least traumatising ways. And we see through the don't worry, be happy shit that gets thrown at us. We know we don't need to become fountains of joy all of the time. It's okay to feel this whole range of feelings. So yeah, there we go. That's the end of chapter 4, which is the end of part 1 of the book.